So I got an email the other day from a guy who's stationed here in Alaska in the military, and he's been caribou hunting a lot, and said that he really wanted to see that next level of challenge and wanted to get into traditional archery, and asked if I had any pointers. After corresponding with him, I was like, hey man, why don't you just come down here and I'll make you a bow and we can go hunt rabbits together and I'll teach you as much as I can. The things that Michael was saying in our conversation reminded me a lot of my brother, who's my #1 hunting buddy, but he decided to leave Alaska to go serve our country, which I think is super noble. So when Michael reached out to me, I wanted to do everything I could to help him out. The plan was to make a 60-pound recurve bow out of locally grown birch. What actually happened is I found the most perfect birch tree I've ever seen, and it was already laying on the side of the road. It got pushed down by the road clearing crew, and I cut it up and made some staves out of it and tried to make a birch bow. And birch is one of my favorite bow woods, and I've made dozens of bows out of birch, and they've all been fantastic. But as I was trying to recurve this particular piece of birch, it broke. So then I started over with another piece from the same log, and it broke again. And now Michael's coming on Saturday, it's Monday, and I have to make a bow really fast, which means I don't have time to dry a birch out properly. So I'm going to have to make him a bow out of this piece of hickory. It's not what I wanted to do, but hickory, you could argue, is a superior wood. The only downside is that it's not a locally grown piece of wood. I don't even know if that would upset him, but it upsets me. So I'm going to put everything I can into this bow to make it the coolest bow possible, to make up for the fact that the birch bow didn't work out. So I've cut it to 66 inches in length. I drew the narrowed handle and the fades to the tips. So this is a 1/2 inch wide tip, and it starts at 10 inches. So basically all I'm going to do is rough this out from the front and then get these limbs bending. So now that I've got the tips narrowed, I need to get these limbs down to thickness, and I also need to narrow the handle. I'm not going to use the hand plane for that. I'm actually going to use this rasp. So this is a farrier's rasp, and it's what they use to shape horse feet. I'm just going to get these limbs down to about 3/8 of an inch, and then see if I can get it to just barely start bending, and then put it on a recurve form. Now that I've got the bow roughed out, I'm just going to take this card scraper and get rid of all of my tool marks. Just like this. And then we're going to put this thing on a recurve form. Alright, here we go. This one's been boiled for 30 minutes. Going to hang the heaviest weight off of the end and see how that goes. Now that the bow is recurved, I'm going to glue on some antler tip overlays and a red cedar handle. These are caribou antlers from the region that Michael likes to go hunting in, and then for the handle section I'm going to add eastern red cedar, which is my personal favorite wood and one of the most beautiful woods I know of. This will add a really lightweight handle, but it'll still beef it up and make it a lot more comfortable, and it'll give me the ability to add an arrow rest, which will make this bow a lot more accurate. For the tiller, I'm aiming for 60 pounds. I think that's a lot for a bow like this, but Michael's super strong, and for the animals in Alaska, it's really nice to have a little bit of extra power. Tillering is the longest and the most important part of this whole build. Getting a smooth bend and hitting that target draw length is not easy, but this one came in at exactly 60 pounds at 29 inches, and it shot great. So all that's left is to add an arrow rest and give this thing to Michael. So this is the bow.
That is sick.
Have you shot recurve for longbow before?
Kind of in passing I've done it.
Okay.
Never really sent it.
Yeah, check it out.
That is sick. Yeah, I like it. That is beautiful.
All right, let me grab some arrows and we'll
We'll give it a shot.
shoot it at that bear. Yeah,
There will be an arrow sent at a caribou with this.
Awesome.
100%. So, I'm probably, you know, hey, who knows?
Yeah, well,
I get good with this thing and I'll fill my freezer with it. That's the plan.
I bet we could get you accurate out to 25 yards in about 30 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. So
Let's
here,
do it.
Grab an arrow.
All right.
Yeah, just send one and then we'll talk about it.
Cool. You tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
That's what
do
that's
that.
what I like to hear.
Yeah. That was actually really good. So you have an anchor point? Did you think about that?
So yeah, I did. So I was thinking kind of the knuckle of the thumb, like right here, eye down the arrow, and line with the pupil.
If your anchor point is further back,
Yeah.
like you get way more energy from more draw length than you do from more draw weight.
Yeah.
So my anchor point, I actually take my thumb and hook it behind here because then I get a couple extra inches.
Okay.
Then I think you were doing this.
Okay.
And then I take my pointer finger and I touch my, like this bone.
Yeah, orbital blend there.
Yeah, and then I hook this here.
Okay.
And that's just like a nice bone-to-bone anchor.
Okay.
And then I'm looking down the arrow and I know what my point on distance is. I don't know, like probably 15 yards with your bow is going to be point on, and then you're going to have to do gap up and down.
Okay.
And then as far as like left to right, that comes down to arrow spine.
Okay.
So if you perfectly match arrows with your bow, it should be center shot. After Michael shot the bow about a dozen times, we wasted no time and got straight into the woods. Rabbit hunting is the perfect way to sharpen our hunting skills because with rabbits, it's usually either a clean miss or you're coming home with a meal. And the shots that you have to make through thick brush are some of the most challenging hunting conditions that I've ever experienced. But it didn't take us long to find one. Stand where I'm standing and look straight back there. There's like a short black spruce. He's just on the right side of the trunk, straight ahead of you.
How far?
30 yards. It's the first tree.
Oh yeah.
It's easier?
Yep.
Okay. That looks really close. What happened?
I'm missing by like 2 inches.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You'll get the next one. He's still there. You see him?
Yeah.
He'll stop. That's a different one.
rabbit, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a different one. Did you see where it stopped?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find your other arrow if you go to that one. Nice rooster spruce grouse, but the season closed like 3 days ago. So I'm just gonna see how close it'll let me get. I set my bow down. Oh, there he goes. Pretty cool. Hopefully he reproduces and stalks my spot. We had to cover some ground to find the next rabbit. This time of year, white rabbits are super skittish, but we were lucky enough to find one that was in a very thick patch of aspen trees. Centered that tree.
Did they all come out?
What's that?
Did all the arrows come out?
Yeah.
Dude.
That was like some of the thickest stuff to shoot a wobbly arrow into. You know how they like oscillate in the air?
Yep.
Yeah. You were like weaving.
I don't.
That was cool though.
Yeah. I mean, we're shooting.
3 more shots.
Yeah. I mean, it's only a matter of time. Eventually, I think we might be able to scare one to death.
Yeah.
I mean, their resting heart rate is like 140.
Dude,
so.
when you stalk these rabbits, I don't think my heart beats faster, but it's definitely louder. It's like I hear it in my eardrums.
Yeah. I know that if I can get within 100 yards of a caribou, I don't need many opportunities. I can, like, if I can get within 100 yards of a single caribou, there's a very high likelihood that it's leaving with me, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's nice, but I think it's when you stop challenging yourself, you stop growing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is like the next logical step, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's like, when I got into this, I wanted like fair chase.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was telling everybody like, no, I want it to be hard and I want to really challenge myself and like, I guess respect the animal or whatever.
Yeah.
And then for me, I got through that and it became, I just think bows are cool.
Yeah. They are cool.
That's what I like to do now.
And I also think that it's definitely easy to say they're cool when you can make something that's as badass as this. Do you mean not everybody can do this? People can try, but this literally looks like something that you would buy at like a manufacturer produced this.
Thanks.
You know what I mean?
I'm glad you think so.
Got him.
Nice work. Nice work, dude.
Got one.
Bringing home dinner tonight. Good shooting too. Like he did a backflip. That was sweet. I will say that I don't usually pass through with this bow.
No?
I usually get stuck on the mud right on the other side. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Hot diggity dog. I think the blood on the bow is pretty cool. Shot. I think that speaks a lot to your ability to make the bows.
I think
like
you're being too nice.
I'm really not. Like it's so I'm not being too nice. I think that if you start behind, you'll finish behind.
Yeah.
Where you start from matters. I've never really shot a recurve or even a longbow, like legitimately trying to kill something or like enough to have a reasonable group or anything like that. And to have shot the bow less than 20 times and to have already killed a rabbit, it's pretty cool. And I think that speaks to the craftsmanship of the bow and the time you put into them. Because I don't think that if I went out here and just cut down a tree and started to try to make a bow with it, I don't think that I'd had the same results.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to do with your like hunting experience and.
Now you're being too kind.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.
That was pretty cool. That was fun. I had a blast hunting with Michael this weekend. I think that he learned a lot, and he's going to take this bow into the caribou woods and see if he can get some big game with it. Hopefully we'll see some pictures and videos of that this fall. Thank you to everybody who serves our country and allows us to live this free life. I'll see you guys in the next video.